Uhuru, I think Uhuru is one of the luckiest presidents ever. That he had, I would call it a failed presidency in terms of the economy. You know, like Uhuru did a pathetic job. But then he got a lucky break that he got someone who's doing even worse. So now it's making him look like he was, So it's making him look like a giant amongst dwarfs. What I keep telling people,
actually Sulitwa al-Shabab.
Yeah. And you see, what I was trying to tell people those days, you guys are gonna do this when people are being randomly picked until the day itawafikia. So now, easy abductions, that's where they started, but now zikakuja, zikafikia now regular people without names like Ali and Muhammad. Zikawafikia, now it has become a big issue. But back then, we would try to raise our voices on it, and man, social media was so hostile. It was so hostile. Ulikuwa unaitwa Al-Shabaab, unaitwa sympathizer. Now, I'll give an interesting story here. Before, during Uhuru's, because these things, they started at Uhuru's time. Uhuru, I think Uhuru is one of the luckiest presidents ever. That he had, I would call it a failed presidency in terms of the economy. You know, like Uhuru did a pathetic job. But then he got a lucky break that he got someone who's doing even worse. So now it's making him look like he was, So it's making him look like a giant amongst dwarfs. So that's where Uhuru is. During Uhuru's time, something used to happen. Abductions did not start with Ruto. So abductions did not even start with Uhuru. You know, with all the goodness that Kibaki had, there were certain things
started with his father.
So there were certain things that were happening. Now, do you know where the abductions were happening at that time ya Kibaki? Because kulikuwa na hii issue ya terrorism. So they were randomly picking up Muslim kids. Abu Drogo is one person.
No,
If you come from any, and Sheila, you can attest to, if you come from any Muslim community, this thing affected our communities in a bad way. And I remember when I used to bring it up those days, like people would even come and label me, oh, hey, you're a sympathizer. And what I kept telling people,
actually Sulitwa al-Shabab.
Yes, and you see, what I was trying to tell people those days, you guys are gonna do this when people are being randomly picked until the day itawafikia. So now, easy abductions, that's where they started, but now zikakuja, zikafikia now regular people without names like Ali and Muhammad. Zikawafikia, now it has become a big issue. But back then, we would try to raise our voices on it, and man, social media was so hostile. It was so hostile. Ulikuwa unaitwa Al-Shabaab, unaitwa sympathizer na nini. And that's why I tell people, be very, very careful. Hata hii kitu ya like kids are being executed in the streets, and then watu wanasema ati watoto walikuwa wamesumbua sana. Let it happen. But now that execution has now come to regular vendors who are selling masks. Si ule ofisa alikuwa anaitwaje, ule Rashid, ule ambaye alikuwa akiwa watoto. Yeah, see, people were saying ati
ule Isli.
Yeah, ule Isli alikuwa anasema ati But you see, the problem of allowing something like that is that it's gonna come and be used for personal use. Look at what has happened to Albert Ojwang. Albert Ojwang, this was a case, huyu DIG, I don't know what kind of power this DIG had, because
a lot.
I think he was given power to do this work for politicians. I think now when leadership, they have someone they want to discipline and everything, they would contract him. Ngoja nimalize Mika. They would contract him. But I think now he felt like hata pia mimi unajua kama vile una drive you drive Benz ya Mdosi, you're the driver, but then every now and then when Mdosi is busy, you feel like you can go see your chick with a Benz. So I think that's what happened. Huyu DIG was the mastermind of doing this for people higher above.
People,
But now he started seeing hii kitu hata pia mtu mimi akinitukana I can use it for personal gain. And
Finya.
And I think unfortunately it was one of those situations where unatumia benzi ya driver kwenda kuona demo wako and then unapata accident hiyo siku.
But let's remember that the story that Ojwang broke was a story of corruption. Of I don't know how many billions is funneled to this past. So it wasn't even an issue of nimetusiwa. It was an issue of
corruption.
I am at risk because now I can be looked into for corruption.
Yes.
And then the other thing we need to remember is that it's a Cyber Crimes Act that got Ojwang where he was. That act was passed in 2018. And that's the one where a defamation case becomes a criminal case. And all of a sudden, if you insult someone, we can put you in a cell and do whatever we want without proving that indeed Langat is not corrupt. Before we prove Langat is corrupt, you're in a cell.
You're in a cell, yeah. Yeah, so again, like, these are the things that I sometimes, miwa nakaa na smile kando, because I remember back in those days when social media was so hostile, like you try to bring something up.
Like Latinos? That's too soon. Latinos.
No, apana, that's a different
what
story.
What about Latinos?
That's a story for another day. That's a story for another day.
I
They're
will
finding
vote
out.
for Donald Trump.
Yeah, they're finding out the wrong way. But I always say, whenever you see, whenever you see, like for example, Miguna being deported and you're celebrating, just know that
siku yako
inakuja. Your day is coming.
Wakikuyu usema shome yako iliko.
Yeah, that one right there. And that's what I'm saying. and that's why
ukiona mwenzako?
Mwenzako akinyolewa, tia maji.
Yeah. So I think that's why I struggle with people like Matiangi who are enforcing the deportation of Miguna, like a bona fide Kenyan.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I, I'm not doing any purity tests, but for someone like Matiangi, I struggle. I struggle with vitu kama hizo hapo.
So kwa huyo unataka litmus paper uone kama inaweza nini?
No, Matiangi,
Matiangi is out.
And I'm sorry to say it, his people have and you see the other problem that also happens, because I think people are realizing what's happening. They're now looking for tokens to say, Matiangi has supporters from other communities. Na hizo ndo game ambazo
kuna kitu tunasahau. He works for the World Bank.
Yes, he does work for the World Bank.
He works for the World Bank.
Yes, he works for the World Bank, which is also, World Bank is also not a very good friend.
And then his career old school politician. Like, alafu basically tunajua jamaa kukuwa na dea campaign inasponsoriwa na mtu. Huyo mtu ni Uhuru.
Yeah, a presidential campaign is very expensive.
Yeah.
It's very expensive.
Wasn't he kind of the de facto deputy during Uhuru's term, right?
Enforcer. I would call him an enforcer. I don't know if I'd call him a deputy. I would have called him more of an enforcer, as in he's being told,
go to enforcer.
Okay.
Mr. Fix It.
Okay.
Okay,
sorry. Yes. Okay, yeah, Mr. Fix It.
Yeah. So again, 2 years is not a long time, and in the next episode we're going to have, I want the two of you to figure out who are the people that we should be looking towards as we're approaching 2027, because at the end of the day, a decision has to be made, and we only have 2 years to make that decision, and that's a very tough decision. Now, outside that
Story